Everybody, I'm Argle Smith. Thanks for joining in here. I know you guys are enjoying my Bible studies, the Christian studies, the church history studies, but those of you who know me personally know that I'm also really into current events and political issues. And so I kind of wanted to add a playlist on here called Christian Current Events. And I know that you guys are going to enjoy this because what I do is I try to look for things that are very pertinent to Christianity and our faith in the media, and kind of do a better explanation of them from a Christian perspective. And so today, I know you guys are all hearing about the Supreme Court decision that's been put in place here recently, and that is what we're going to get into here today. Monday's Supreme Court decision protects the LGBTQ community against discrimination in the workplace. Now, if someone identifies as LGBT or Q, he or she cannot be fired for their sexual orientation or gender identity. Of course, that person still can be fired for any other number of reasons, but not because they are not straight. I know some of you may not be that familiar with the Supreme Court, so let me just begin with a simple breakdown of the court. Sometimes you'll see it abbreviated in the news as SCOTUS, which simply stands for the Supreme Court of the United States. SCOTUS is the highest court of the land, and its interpretations of law are final unless they are overturned in a future hearing by SCOTUS. The SCOTUS is one of our three branches of government. There is the legislative branch consisting of the House and the Senate, the executive branch consisting of the President's office, and the judicial branch of SCOTUS. Therefore, SCOTUS holds a lot of power. The judges are selected by the President and approved by Congress. The court consists of one Chief Justice and 8 Associate Justices. Each appointment is a lifetime tenure. They can leave if they want to resign or retire, but the judges can stay until they die. There are 9 judges total to prevent split decisions. The majority rule stands in each case. Right now, there are 5 conservative judges and 4 liberal judges, which makes it a conservative-leaning court. The current Chief Justice is John Roberts, a conservative-appointed judge by President George W. Bush. The case that was decided on Monday was Bastock versus Clayton County, Georgia. The case involved 3 individuals being fired for their sexual orientation or gender identity. There were 2 gay men and 1 transgender being represented in the case. Gerald Bastock was fired after joining a gay softball team. Donald Zarda was fired after making a joke about his gayness to another employee, and transgender Amy Stevens was fired after coming out to his boss. The case was argued on October the 8th, 2019. The case centered on the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which protects employees against discrimination due to race, color, national origin, sex, and religion. The argument came down to if the word sex in the Civil Rights Act of 1964 under Title VII just means male and female, or does the word sex include sexual orientation and gender identity? While it was agreed by the court that the word sex in 1964 meant male and female, and still does today, the court decided that the word sex must also take into account one's sexual orientation and gender identity, because, they argued, in order to discriminate against one's sexual orientation and gender identity, one has to consider one's sex first. This decision should not come as a surprise to many evangelicals living in the United States today. Our nation is one nation under God in word only, but not deed. Let's be honest here. The courts have decided a long time ago against laws that enforce sexual morality, with a few exceptions being sexual assault, rape, child molestation, and polygamy. But in the current hostile environment towards morality, it is only a matter of time before many of these laws will be redefined as well. As a believer, I know this decision causes a lot of concern about the future living in the United States. What about our religious freedoms? That is kind of what I want to talk about next. Fortunately for believers, there is a religious exemption to Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. In regards to religion, the exemption says this subchapter shall not apply to a religious corporation, association, educational institution, or society with respect to the employment of individuals of a particular religion to perform work connected with the carrying on by such corporation, association, educational institution, or society of its activities. I know that's a mouthful. Let me explain it this way first. When the Civil Rights Act was first established, whether or not you agree with it, the churches, like the Independent Fundamental Baptists, for example, could still discriminate against and refuse to employ a female pastor because that would be a violation of their religious beliefs. Well, the same goes for the LGBTQ community today. Any Christian church or organization that the LGBTQ lifestyle would be a clear violation of their belief system can still discriminate against such individuals by refusing to hire and continue to fire those who practice those sexually immoral lifestyles. In other words, your church will not have to worry about hiring or firing a transgender pastor for any time in the near future. The Supreme Court also recognized this in their decision on Monday. Of course, the courts are still trying to define what constitutes a religious corporation, association, educational institution, or society. That is where this gets kind of muddy. For example, we have seen many cases involving Christian bakers and wedding photographers. Are these kinds of businesses still allowed to discriminate against their employees who identify with the LGBTQ community? As of right now, the answer is yes, but only time will tell as to how the Supreme Court will decide these cases in the future. Therefore, for right now, Christian universities, churches, schools, and such are protected under this exemption. However, Justice Alito wrote in a scathing dissension, "The position that the court now adopts will threaten freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and personal privacy and safety." No one should think that the court's decision represents an unalloyed victory for the individual liberty. The safety that Justice Alito was referring to is all the problems that will stem from the bathroom, locker room, college dorm rooms, and other similar scenarios which we have already seen taking place. Justice Alito believes subjecting victims of sexual assault to sharing these private spaces will inevitably lead to, quote, serious psychological harm. I cannot even begin to imagine what kind of impact this decision will have on women's sports and the like. But the main problems right now stemming from this decision for Christians fall with Christian business owners. If one's business as a Christian business owner is not a Christian business that falls under the exemption clause, for example, let's say you are a mechanic, then that Christian business employer cannot discriminate against a member of the LGBT community with regards to employment. For example, in this current case of Amy Stevens, her boss was a Christian owner of a funeral home. The Christian owner clearly lost the case yesterday. This is a major chip at an individual's right to practice religious freedom within their privately owned business. I strongly believe that this is a major defeat for Christian business owners. Well, there you have it, people. Hope you enjoyed this session of current Christian events. I hope that this video calmed some of your concerns and answered some of your questions. On top of it all, I know it is still troubling to see our nation fall into moral decline. But these are the times that we are living in, and the outcomes that we can expect to see as Christians as the approach of Jesus shortens. We know very well, as we approach the day of the Lord, many will call evil good and good evil. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below. I'll get back to you. Keep fighting the good fight. God bless.